we're in the middle of projects and lots of concern, but. They can be a couple hours.
They could be a couple few.
Yeah.
We do the agenda in order of like what we must get
Do you
done.
guys like long meetings?
No, we're really gonna work on that, yeah.
Mike's on.
1 o'clock. Okay, yep.
My apologies. Can everyone turn on the mics, please?
So, we'll call this meeting to order and we'll start as usual. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, thank you, Chad. Old man syndrome, sorry. Okay, present. So, roll call. Now,
I'm happy to.
do I do it or do you do it?
I'll be happy to do it.
Okay, all right, you do it, Therese.
Member Nelson,
Here.
Member McKesson,
Here.
Member Marnett,
Here.
Member Irvine.
Here.
Member Johnson. Here. Member Gasca.
Here.
Everyone's here. Thank you.
Okay. So it looks like we have a full house, which is good. And we still do not have an regular alternate, right?
We haven't filled the staff alternate seat, yes, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
All right. So that gets us to item number 4 on the agenda, item number 5. Additions, deletions, amendments to the agenda, as always. Look to the staff.
We
Do you
have
have any proposed changes?
No changes.
Any of the committee members, any proposed changes on the agenda?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. So we need to approve the agenda, and that is that a roll call vote, or can we just do ayes and nays?
Ayes and nays.
Okay. All those in favor
Need-
of approving the
Motion
agenda?
and a second.
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, moved by Julie, seconded by Meg. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. Good.
Actually, I think we probably have to do a roll call vote because I'm remote.
Cause he's remote.
Okay, I'll be happy to.
Okay.
Member Nelson,
Aye.
Member McKesson,
Aye.
Member Marnett,
Aye.
Member Irvine.
Aye.
Member Johnson. Aye. Member Gasca.
Aye.
Motion is unanimous.
Okay, good. Item 7, public comment. Do we have any members of the public?
We do, sir. We have 2 members of the public.
Okay, all right. So I'll read this. Public comment, item 7. Any person may address the committee at this time upon any subject not identified on this agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the Rainbow Municipal Water District. However, any matter that requires action will be referred to staff for a report and action at a subsequent meeting. As to matters on the agenda, an opportunity will be given to address the committee when the matter is considered. Members of the public may make comments in person by submitting a speaker slip to the board secretary, virtually through virtual or teleconference options, or by submitting an email to Therese no less than 1 hour prior to the posted start time of the meeting. Comments shall be made in an orderly manner, and profanity, slander, or abusive language which is disruptive to the meeting will not be tolerated. Individuals have a limit of 3 minutes to make comments and will have the opportunity when called upon by the presiding officer. And do we have any requests to speak at this time? None. Therese?
Do not.
Okay. Item 8, approval of minutes. We have all received copies of the minutes that Therese and her staff have prepared for us. And my first question, as always, is are there any suggested changes or comments or questions about the minutes?
Yeah, I do. I
Okay,
do have one.
all right, Meg.
When, I forget what the exact number was, but when, Jake made the presentation regarding, water infrastructure and the briefing that was presented, it's not in the package, so I would recommend that either that briefing be added to the package or, perhaps a link to where it can be found be noted in the minutes.
Which one was it? And what was that? A link to
Uh,
the,
You went through and discussed the status of water infrastructure, the wells that had been applied for, and then also the study that had been conducted. I didn't see that in the package with the minutes, so.
item 12? Okay.
I can add that to the website as well.
Meg, this is, as I understand, this is the review of inactive groundwater supply infrastructure, right? That's the topic area that you're talking about.
Right, correct, item 12.
And Jake presented a slide or
I believe so.
that indicated the locations of these particular wells and such, Meg?
Yeah, it was kind of a summary, I thought.
Summary. I gave a summary.
Yeah,
Status, yeah. So you want to link the presentation? Is that what you're saying?
well, either, I was going to say either include the presentation in the package or provide the link, note the link in the minutes where they can go to find it in the on the district's website.
Okay. We can add to where the meeting was. That's a good idea. That's fine.
Sure.
Okay, so you are moving to amend the minutes to include said link. Is that correct, Meg?
Yes, I would. Yeah.
Okay.
So moved.
Just need a second.
I'm processing here. Is the motion to approve the minutes with this change, or is the motion simply to make this change? Big difference.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with the change.
Okay, and you moved it, and Julie, you second?
Sure.
Okay, and so we need to do a roll call?
Member Nelson,
Aye.
Member McKesson,
Aye.
Member Marnett,
Aye.
Member Irvine,
Abstain.
Member Johnson. Aye. Member Gasca.
Aye.
Motion carries with one abstention.
Okay. All right. That gets us to item 9, comments and requests. We'll start with general manager's comments. Jake, that's you.
Yeah, I'll keep it really brief today. The only thing I wanted to update you on was just water supply. I know and I'd sent the board an email. I think this was early January. Just, it's been so dry here in Southern California, and I know a lot of people start to get nervous about drought and things like that. The start to the water year hasn't been terrible. As far as the import supply, and they're going to get 4 or 5 feet of snow over the next couple of days. It's really going to help on the state water project side. So from the state water project in December, they upped the allocation to 15%, which is not a great allocation for all the importers down here, but it's not terrible. It's been lower before during drought time. It was 5% down in that range. When we get to about 25%, that's about the point where there's enough supply to meet the demand. Basically, it's a net zero kind of on the storage. Anything above that, then you start to actually put additional water in storage. But Metropolitan has started the year with record high amounts of storage, so well prepared for a dry year or multiple dry years. And it seems to be trending towards, if we can get kind of February and March to be decent months, which it's starting out that way, we should end up there. They've actually upped the allocation, even though that really dry month of January, they actually upped the allocation from 15 to 20%, even despite of that. So I would anticipate that if we get some wet weather, that'll even increase. So we're looking at potentially another year of, where supplies are at least at demands. So all in all, the picture looks pretty good on the supply side. Colorado could probably use a little more weather too. I think they're a little below average right now, which that's where we'd really like to see it to start to get water back in Meade and Powell, start to get those levels up. But that's really been stabilized because we've been kind of banking on the State Water Project last couple of years. So anyways, not a terrible story there. Locally, our sales are up. It has been very dry. We were sales were about just a little over 7,000 acre feet by the end of, is that November? I was just looking at it. But anyways, we're about 20% up on sales. I don't think that's going to drop. I think when we kind of register the numbers for what we've seen over the last month or so, that's probably going to continue or maybe even be a little above that, just because of how dry it's been. So we're looking at, we had budgeted originally for about 10,000 acre feet of sales. I think we're trending well above that, more towards the 12 to 13,000 acre feet, I think is likely. Again, we've got 5 months left to go. So, if we get a lot of wet weather and that, it could change, but I think we're going to be pretty well above where we were last year, which is a good story. That's net positive on the revenue and that kind of thing. So we like it when our farmers get a little bit of relief from the rain. So we're happy to see that. Happy to see that happen, but overall water sales are actually a net positive this year. So I think I'll just leave it at that. We got plenty of business to take care of today.
Okay. Any questions for General Manager? Comments? Okay, we'll move on to item 9B. Chad, Engineering CIP Manager.
I'm going to defer. We have a lot to go into. We have an informational presentation we'd like to give to the committee, and so we'll dive into the weeds on all the projects at that point.
Okay. Comments or questions for Chad? All right, item 9C, that Operation Manager, Robert, that's you.
You
Are
can't.
you strangely quiet today?
Can't.
Oh, no,
Oh, no.
no, not at all. I've got a couple other things I've got to discuss that are on the agenda, so I'm going to defer as well unless anybody has any questions.
Okay, so he is strangely quiet. Yes, he is. All right.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Robert for resuming his beginning of the week report. I've been posting it up to Nextdoor, and I think it's been pretty well received. I think the first one I did had like 1,760 tags, looks at it, and then the second one I posted was about 760 tags. I usually either send it to all the neighborhoods that are in Division 3 and the Homestead group, which has about 333 members. And then at times I'll also post to the just Nextdoor at large, but that goes all over the place and it's not as focused. So anyway, keep up the good work, Robert, and thanks for sending that out.
You're welcome.
Robert,
What's up?
could I please be included on that list?
That's it for me.
Anything else, Meg? You done? Okay,
No, sir. That's it.
okay. Any other questions for Robert? Comments? All right, 9D, committee member comments. Are there any committee members who have comments they'd like to make at this time? Robert?
Well, some of you may know my house is 306 feet from the Hutton tank. And fortunately, some green fire trucks from Napa showed up and plopped in my driveway. And no damage whatsoever to the house. Lost 3 or 4 acres of trees in the back, which I was trying to get rid of anyway. So that was fine. But the only thing that happened is for some reason they weren't able to hook up to the fire plug, which is 200 feet from my house. So they used my house water and said that they felt that Rainbow should pay whatever that delta is, that because they ran with it for many hours. I have no idea how many units of water it'd be. It can't be a lot, but anyway, they hooked it up to their truck and ran with it and just sprinkled everything. So anyway, they did a really good job, and we had an awful lot of firefighters crawling around on the land for a day and a half afterwards, getting all the smoke off.
Yep.
But as long as the house is safe, who cares? And
Yeah, no, it was good. It was good to see. Me and Robert were up there that morning too, and so got to see firsthand that your house it burned everything around it. It was
Oh, yeah.
pretty amazing.
and did you notice that my field, which is all dirt, was untouched, and all around the tank was fried?
Yeah.
But that'll just save you on the contract later on in here.
There you go. The weed abatement.
So I'd be curious as to know why they couldn't hook up to the public service. Anybody
For
have?
some
any ideas
reason
on
they,
that?
they couldn't do it.
I mean, it's standard connections. The only thing is that hydrant has low pressure. So if they were trying to run it, because it's coming right off the tank that it's sitting next to, if they were trying to run hose up to his house, which is above the tank level, they weren't going to get any water.
Yeah.
They would have to put a pumper truck down at the fire hydrant and then pump it up to
Uphill.
up his driveway.
And eventually that's what they did. They actually hooked up right to the tank
To
and
the
going
tank,
into a
yeah.
truck.
So
Yeah.
they had requested us, I don't know, it's probably 3 or 4 in the morning to unlock the gate to the tank so they could pull water right off the tank. And we have a connection there at all of our tanks actually. And they thought that'd be better. It's the same elevation as the hydrant,
Yeah.
whatever floats your boat.
See, my water is already pressurized since I have a pump.
Yeah.
And fortunately, the only time ever, the electric company didn't turn the power off. So my pump worked and they were able to hook up to it, and where they were getting it, it was 60 to 80 pounds.
Yeah.
60, 80 PSI.
It's good.
Okay, well, we're glad that you are safe and that your property is intact. Good, happy.
I have a comment as well.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with Robert that the area in Division 1 that was impacted. Shout out to the crew and to Rainbow Water and to all the agencies that were helping. It was extremely volatile at that time in the morning, like 1:30 or so. And we really thought we would lose some homes and structures, and not one structure was lost. So shout out to everyone.
It's good.
Absolutely. Okay,
Yeah, I've got one, Clint.
Yep.
Along the same lines, dealing with fire. I got an email that came in from John Franklin, he's the mayor of Vista, and it looks like he's running for 5th District Supervisor in 26. But the title of it was Wildfire in San Diego County, and he touted that Vista had been spending a lot of money getting equipment and manpower up and all that to be able to fight fires. And he mentioned coordinating with Rainbow on checking hydrants and such. And I forwarded the email to Hayden and to Jake because I think there's an opportunity there to perhaps engage with Vista to help fund that second RAWS tank over on Morrow. And nothing ventured, nothing gained. I think he's, it looks like he's going to be looking for those kind of opportunities, and we might be able to leverage that to get some funds out of Vista to build that second tank.
I did get that email too, and I listened to it. Yeah, it's good.
okay, any other comments this time? We'll move on then to item 10, board action updates. For those that are new to the committee, we like to have the staff report back to the committee on items that the committee worked on and recommended to the board in one way or another, either in favor or rarely in opposition, and find out what did the board do with the items that we acted upon. So Chad, that's usually you, right?
Yeah, I don't think we had any
Two
action,
consent,
the consent stuff.
just two consent notice of completions. One was for Havens 1A1, their first phase, and the second was a single residence water service installation. Both were approved on the consent calendar and recorded by the county yesterday.
All right, very good, very good. Okay, item number 11, annual appointment of committee chair and vice chair. Steve has been our vice chair for the past year. I've been your chair for some time. What is the will of the committee? What is it you would like to do? What are your thoughts?
Would you both like to continue?
Yes.
I'm willing. I'm also always willing in the spirit of rotation to turn the gavel over to somebody else, but I'm willing to serve if that's what the committee wants. I think we need some kind of a motion here.
I'll make the motion that we retain the president and or chairman and vice chair for the engineering and ops committee as currently composed.
I'll second.
Okay, Mig moves and Julie seconds that we continue the flywheel the way it is now. Therese, you want to go ahead and do a roll call? Oh, well, is there any discussion? Any discussion? All right, Therese,
Member Nelson,
aye.
Member McKesson,
Aye.
Member Marnett,
Aye.
Member Irvine.
Aye.
Member Johnson,
Aye.
Member Gaska,
Aye.
motion's unanimous.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And Steve and I will continue to try to do our best to serve the committee as best we can. We'll go to item 12. Consider an agreement with the Perot Corporation for services at District Headquarters, Division 4. This was a very interesting read,
Mhm.
frankly.
Yeah, it is. And this is something we've been working on for several months, approached by the Peralt Corporation. And this is not something all that new to the district, but we have the lower yard. We use about half of it, for various, we've got a lift station down there and we store materials and that kind of thing. But it's 10 acres plus 12 acres down there that's available. And like I said, we only use about half of it. So we're using a portion of the yard to stockpile materials, excess materials that come from job sites, leak repairs, pipeline installations, anywhere we're doing construction, which is handy, but it piles up. And so eventually we either have to haul those things off at a cost, and this is something we've done in the past, or have someone process them and actually make them usable, right? So sand, gravel, materials that we use quite often when we're now reinstalling things, right? New valve packages, new pipelines, those kind of things. And so we've been working with Peralt on a potential arrangement, kind of a unique business arrangement, where they would process the materials in our lower yard. In our favor, we get all our materials for free. So we get all the sand, gravel, at no cost to the district. The benefit they get is any excess, they can haul it off, and they have various places where they actually, they own the place off of 76 where you can pull in, and, they've got the bins where you can buy sand and gravel. So they get the excess material. That's the benefit to them. We've estimated, I'm just taking this over, am I? we've taken a look at, we went back about 5 years in our budget just to see what do we spend every year in materials, and it's about $80,000 a year in purchase materials. So in essence, you end up with kind of a lease arrangement that's valued at $6,000-7,000 a month for property that we're just putting soil piles on now, and that we would have to pay to get rid of. So also part of the arrangement, because they are kicking up dust and everything, they're going to wash all the vehicles. What is that, every Friday?
I think it's
Or-
every week, yeah.
yeah, once a week, which is something we also pay for right now.
Correct.
We have a service come in. They don't wash all the vehicles, but anything that's kind of needed, like a mobile service. So there's some savings there as well, or potential savings there as well. But anyways, felt like it was a mutually beneficial agreement that we've structured there. And we had legal, Nossaman reviewed it, both the structure of it and kind of the terms to make sure we're fully protected. Also, Aqua JPIA, our insurer, reviewed it, all the conditions. So we felt it's been pretty well vetted. And so that's really what's before you today. I think the other thing is it's a 5-year term, but there's a 60-day termination for any purpose. So, if there was for whatever reason, we decided, hey, solar makes sense now, and we're going to, there's an end, we can take our property back in short notice, which is something that was important to me because, you just never know what's going to come along in the next 5 years. But I think for the foreseeable future, we don't have an identified alternative use for that property, and so felt that this would be nice to cut something out of the budget. Basically it's alternate revenue, it's non-rate revenue, and that I know that was something that the board was very interested in pursuing, and so this is item 1.
Jake, because of the elevation of this land, is it deemed unsuitable to build on because it's too close to the creek level?
Not well, in its current state, yeah, you wouldn't be able to build structures because it does rest in the floodplain. Doesn't mean you couldn't build in it. It would just take it'd take a lot of study, because you have to have like no impact to the flood, to the flood area. That's,
Okay.
if you're going to get something through the county. Not impossible. It just takes a lot of engineering and time and money. With time and money you could. And yeah, so right now, yeah, it's really not usable for much else. You could probably get some if you were going to do solar panels, on posts and things, you could probably do something like that. That's why I mentioned that is a possibility at some point that something like that could make sense. But again, in the short term, we really don't see an immediate need for that property, and so that was kind of the thought.
Robert, is the
Sure.
material, that's all self-produced, or is there going to be any import that they
No.
process?
So we constantly import it from our existing excavations, like when we do leaks and stuff like that. So if you have a leak, all that material that you dig out, you've got to bring back here because it just turns into mud. We can't put it back in the hole. That material that's down there, some of it's from leaks. I mean, a lot of it's from leaks. Some of it's from when we did the lift station, the thoroughbred lift station, and some of it's from when we did the new pump stations.
But none of it's third-party import.
No. And it's gotten to the point now where when you drive by down there and you look, it's like, we just don't have room for anymore. We've got to do something with it. Right. And they were here before. And we asked them to vacate. We also had what the heck was that, Chad? It was I don't want to say a boat storage.
RE Straight
RE Straight. They were storing
barge equipment.
down the lower lot. So we had both of those companies leave because that's when we were really looking hard at, were we going to relocate the district headquarters down there? So we wanted to get everything prepared for that. But as things go, things have changed, and now we have all these spoils down there that we need to get out for. Essentially, we're out of room. Now we've actually started. So there's 2 different lots. There's one on the 395, and then there's the lot, the west lot where we have all our pipe and stuff, but we're actually starting to pile stuff there now because we've ran out of room in the front lot. So, yeah,
I have a question.
sure.
It sounds like there's a lot of pros. What are the disadvantages of going with this to the district? Any?
I think the only thing is you have somebody else on site, right? You have somebody else on site. So it's something we have to monitor. We put some limitations in there as far as like how high the spoils piles can be. And so we wanted to avoid, any, not that it's pretty right now, but, horrible visual impacts and things like that. But really it's just somebody we have to kind of monitor on site. But
We limited
Yeah.
their, like, we basically the entire perimeter of that lot. So we produced, I think it's one of the appendix in here, but it's a map and we said these areas are no-go areas. So we limited the scope, but I think the important thing is there's an exit at any time. And that, for whatever reason that we seem fit, if let's say they're not cooperating with us or the board says, hey, we're going to build the new office down there tomorrow, we can tell them, okay, wherever you're at, if you're halfway through process, it doesn't matter. Here's your 60-day notice. You need to vacate. And having that, I think,
limits the downside.
it limits the downside. Instead of having like a 5-year lease where we're locked in and we don't have any recourse and we'd have to get attorneys involved and whatnot. This just really says, hey, thanks, but we're done. Don't process any more of our material. Please vacate the premise.
And to that end, this was originally written as a lease and it was legal who said this should actually be a professional services agreement. So that actually eliminates a lot of the potential downsides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
What's the egress path, and will there be undue wear and tear?
No, so they won't be coming through this gate up here that we call it the employee gate. They'll be coming off the gate down off of 395 closer to the river or the bridge down there. So no impact to our operations up here. There's one huge benefit by having them do that. In the agreement, they're going to keep our bins. So we have separate bins of material over here. They're going to keep them full. But sometimes we'll go through that material, let's say on a Thursday, Friday, and on Saturday something happens and a bin's empty. We just go over and get it out of their yard. And then we call them and tell them, hey, we took whatever this many truckloads. It keeps us from having to call other water districts and say, hey, do you have material that we can come get, and trying to do that in the middle of the night or on the weekend or whatnot. This really simplifies the process for us.
One last question.
Sure.
Because the mobile park home is right there, is there any concerns of the ratepayers there?
Noise or whatever?
Yeah, any of that?
Yeah, so they're working their work is limited to working hours. So like Sundays are, no go. It's our working hours when this business or Rainbow's open. They have to adhere to county dust control rules. So there is a fire hydrant down there that there'll be a water meter on it, construction meter, and they'll have to maintain the dust. But short of that, there shouldn't be a lot of noise that anything different than what we normally generate here.
So there's no like rock crushing or anything like that going
No.
on that would be noisy?
Not rock crushers. It's separators, I guess
Yeah.
we call it. I don't know what the exact term is for it, but yeah,
I think you've thought it through.
we tried. And this discussion actually started last October. So this didn't happen within the last 2 weeks. It's been a lot of thought going into this, working with Nossaman, back and forth and trying to sort all this stuff out. But yeah, we really wanted to make sure that this was landing in the district's favor.
Thank you.
In
Yeah.
in the immortal words of Inspector Clouseau, I am a bit confused. We're talking about spoils that we bring to the property from our projects, right? I'm not hearing any real conversation about issues of hazardous or toxic material in these spoils. I'm hearing they're unusable to be put back into where we pull them out.
In their current
in their
state.
current state.
In their
Yeah.
current state, right. So I dig a trench, I pull out spoils. It's from a leak, they're muddy, they're sloppy, they're whatever. So we haul them back here to our yard and we dump them in a place. And we take spoils that are available to us from our yard and we bring them back and fill the hole. the muddy spoils that we just pulled out are going to sit and they will ultimately dry out and could be mixed and able to be used again. Why don't we just have a revolving fund of our own spoils that we bring, we store, and when they dry out or we pick them up and we use them again? Why do we need a middleman?
No, that's what this is.
Why do we need a
Because
middleman
we
to
don't,
do
we
that?
don't have the equipment to separate and process it, right? So
Yeah.
when we drop the spoils, it's got asphalt, concrete. There might be rocks of this size in there. They're bringing the equipment in to separate all that out. So first dry it out if it's wet and then separate it out and make it either we want it as sand or we want it as DG where it has, a little bit of rock in it, or we just want rock, 3/4 inch rock. Their equipment separates all that.
And there's also a lot in these exports, there's clay that we don't want to put back in. Even if it's dry, that's just non-usable at all. And this can also be separated out.
Why would the clay be non-usable if it's just going to be buried 6 or 8 feet in the
It's
ground?
expandable. It's
Compact.
very
Okay.
hard to compact it.
Yeah, you can't
Okay.
get compact.
All right, all right. And have we looked at buying a machine that does this separating?
No.
Sorry, I just want to know. I mean,
The machine
Yeah.
and the personnel and the maintenance
Yeah.
and, right? That's probably not.
Yeah, we're not saving the 80,000 a year and now we're.
Yeah,
okay.
good questions.
And the liability.
And liability.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my only comment regarding the contract would have been risk and safety. And it looks like you guys worked with Ossaman, pretty well took care of E&O, general liability insurance, and it looks pretty tight. So I like it.
Are there any further comments or questions on this items? If there are none, then I'm looking for a motion that we recommend to the board.
Yeah, I move that we accept and recommend to the board the proposal as stated.
Okay. Steve moves. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Robert seconds. So moved by Steve, seconded by Robert, that we recommend the board approve this agreement and move forward in that manner. So you'll have to do a roll call for us, okay? Thank you.
Member Nelson,
Aye.
Member McKesson,
Aye.
Member Marnett,
Aye.
Member Irvine,
Stain.
Member Johnson,
Aye.
Member Gasca,
Aye.
motion's unanimous.
Okay, unanimously passed. Item number 13. Consider an agreement with Dexter Wilson Engineering for the design of the Gopher Pump Station Project Division 1. Who wants to talk about this?
I'm not taking this one. You
I
take
was gonna
this
say, man,
I can give you the background.
it's all. I got it.
You sure?
I'm making sure, I was making sure the boss didn't want to take it. So currently the district has a portable, towable, temporary pump skid at this location. This is just northwest of the Turner Tank off Wild Acres. The reason we did this during the whole detachment process, when we came up with the pump stations at West Lilac, at Rancho Amigos, and then ultimately Dentro, staff had another idea. And Weiss, if anyone who's been on the committee long enough remembers, the Weiss pump station at the city of Oceanside treatment plant is just on hold indefinitely at this point. So staff came up for some more operational flexibility of how can we move some more water, especially on those peak demand days and months. And as a test for over a year now, Robert, is that correct? Over a year now, we took out our towable pump skid and set it up, configured it to where it can pump water. It takes from Turner and pumps to Gopher, which Jake and I were talking about the naming of this pump station. Because if you're there, you're at the Turner tank, but we're pumping to a different location. During the course of the pump test, we'll call it, the system operators have identified potentials, which is why we're very interested in working with this firm that we're recommending. If we could install some new valves, which we put in the memo, update the valving, update some piping, it could not just pull from the Turner tank and pump to Gopher. There's a possibility that this could pull from any Hutton, Turner, or Gopher tank and then pump to any of those tanks by opening and closing valves. So we're keenly looking into that. Even out of its, I'll call it worst case, take from Turner, pump to Gopher, it still provides operational flexibility because our pump stations that we have were all undersized due to suction limitations that we had. If these could have been bigger, we would have made them all bigger. So we went out to that's the background. I'll pause there for any questions on background.
So the three brand new pump stations we just put in.
Yes.
Were undersized.
Staff wanted them bigger initially. They're sized appropriately as big as the system can handle.
What this new pump station does is give us the flexibility to move water between any one of the tanks
And
in
we
any
can't
direction.
do that now.
No, so right now all the water comes from Morrill. And let's say it feeds the three pump stations. And Dentro can only pump up to Gopher. West Lilac pumps up to Hutton and Rancho Amigos pumps Turner. So like during the public safety power shutoffs, one of the pump stations, West Lilac was out, right? So what we do is we open up valves that kind of connect these zones together. And it's not very effective, but it works, but barely. So you've got a bunch of 6 and 8 inch lines between these tanks. So you have what's called head loss. What the station's gonna do is give us the redundancy to move water to basically suck it from any pump, any tank and move it to any one of the other tanks. It's
Yeah, and I think working through this, and we tried to kind of include this in the memo. I think that one of the key benefits is really it protects you against all kinds of different operating scenarios, right? If you've got if you do, because you actually have two of the pump stations that can both go to Turner, right? Doesn't just go to Gopher, it can, but
Dentro.
but Dentro can also go to Turner. So you can get quite a bit of water up into Turner, which is where this would be located. But if anything occurs, we were talking about a leak on Gopher Canyon that takes that transmission main out, or like Robert mentioned, a PSPS event over at the Lilac pump station, any kind of planned or unplanned outage, right? We got to take a pump station down for maintenance or whatever it is. Now you really have the ability, and we want to, I think that's where this project has changed too. This was an approved CIP project last year. It was in our CIP budget, but I think it's morphed a little bit, right? Originally, we were just looking at, hey, let's get a couple pumps up there to move water to Gopher. And now realizing, boy, with some planning and proper design, we can actually do a lot more. And it provides such a huge benefit especially for these emergency situations, maybe on some peak days too, supplementing. If we get some heavy demand out of Hutton, you can move a little bit more water over there. So some operational flexibility there. But really those emergency scenarios. And then as we started talking through those things, it's like, well, if you're going to do that, we're going to want a backup generator there. We're going to want, so anyways, that's really kind of the purpose of it. It really provides us, instead of having one way up, we really have multiple ways now to move water all through that Division 1 area with this pump station in. So,
and this started,
yeah,
the idea of this came from our system operations supervisor when we realized the Weiss pump station wasn't going to happen.
Correct.
And so we had to figure out a way, how are we going to get water up to Gopher? That was different. We had to figure that out. There was no options. And we put a temporary pump skid up there, ran power to it, and did some valving and said, will this pump all the way from Turner to Gopher? And it did, and it worked. So that was actually the genesis of how we got to this point.
So, and we do have adequate funding in the CIP budget for this design contract. Again, originally we had envisioned kind of a more rudimentary improvement up there. The scope has expanded on this project, and that's why we put in an updated what we think the estimated costs are. We with kind of adding in this emergency reliability, those kind of features in there. And so we have the money for design. We do think, this is probably, it's a year-long design process. You're probably looking at not even next fiscal year where this would get built. It'd be the following fiscal year. We will need additional funds for construction. So we wanted to be kind of clear about that up front. But we did have the design funds were included in this year's CIP budget. So no impact to the budget.
Was it a sole source or a bid?
No, great question. So the district conducted an RFP, and 4 civil firms were selected on that. So they are on our on-call as needed. All 4 firms received this invitation, and all 4 firms proposed on it.
Did they give a financial total?
They did. So Ardura came in at 375,000 with a duration of 15 months to design. Dexter Wilson, the low and staff recommendation is at 220,000 with 11 and a half months. Harrison Associates came in at 343,877, 9 months. And Waterworks Engineers, 249,979, 11 months.
So the recommendation is Dexter Wilson at 220.
Correct.
So in the scheme of things, you have a must-have and a nice-to-have. Are we really close to the must-have
I would say it's,
activity?
I think you've got it right. And I think all the benefits it provides, yes, it's again, not a must have. There's these other kind of funky workarounds
Yeah.
that we can do and things like that. I think the thing that most concerns us is when you're going to have to go out and do those things, there is going to be some emergency going on, right? At times it's going to be functional during, again, high peak use times and things like that as well. But that's when we really started thinking about, I think we really want the ability to operate this thing remote, because those are the kind of situations you're going to be dealt with. And that really kind of moved the needle on, I think we really need to have this. I mean, needs to be a higher priority project. Yeah.
Do we have any other things hidden in the background that it's like this? Not here, but other pumping situations that you haven't zeroed in on yet that.
Well, we've got, I mean, for the South Zone, no. Lookout pump station needs backup power. It needs an update that's in our CIP. And there are definitely things like, the Lilac pump station could use a backup generator. I mean, there are things we are going to press forward over the next couple of years to really kind of shore up kind of our continuity of service all over the place.
But this is more important than those at the moment.
I would say yes. This provides us the best. And again, we're gonna go through the design phase, and obviously as we keep updating our CIP, we update the prioritization and all that. But yeah, this is on the higher end of the priority table. Yes.
Okay.
I have some questions. In reading this, I have multiple questions, so I'm not sure even where to rank it. But one of the questions is, why now? The ratepayers were told when we detached, we were going to do the 3 pump stations. And 2 of the pump stations, actually, ideally, it would be great for them to have generators, and they don't right now. So I guess one of the questions is, now it was on our CIP.
Okay.
Where was it on our CIP in the ranking?
It was this year's project. It was one of the highest priority. Yeah.
Which one? Which high? Well, the reason I'm asking is because we have a lot of things that we want to do, but is this something that could wait for a few years? Because and I know later in the agenda, we're going to talk about the CIP.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of other things. So I think I'm
Yeah.
sort of asking the same question Robert is.
I'm going to piggyback on that because I hear where you're coming from, and I have to say that I was very disturbed at this project. Just to be honest with you, this project was originally in the CIP for $700,000. It's now jumped all the way up to $1.8 million. And if we start this design process, then we have basically committed ourselves to building a $1.8 million project, which was originally only $700,000. Comparatively speaking, when you say where does it rank compared? I mean, we have not in years replaced a pipeline that's busted. We have La Cañada. How many main breaks have we had on La Cañada pipeline? When we had the $700,000 surplus from early savings, La Cañada was one of the options we discussed as a deployment of that money. And I'm guessing that the $1.1 million cost, I don't know, overrun, whatever you want to call it, increase on the pump station Gopher Canyon, I'm guessing that some of the savings from early detachment are being used to fund that. I'm just guessing. I don't know. This doesn't say where that money comes from. And with on piggybacking on Julie, how urgent is this compared to replacing decayed infrastructure that continues to cost us huge amounts of money in the operating budget? Promises we made to ratepayers years ago that we were going to undertake an aggressive pipeline replacement program to get our infrastructure back in order. And once again, a bright, shiny new toy has been able to summon $1.1 million than was originally programmed, and there still is no pipeline replacement program. And I'm concerned about that because I can just see that, we get started and pretty soon there'll be another bright, shiny toy and there still will be no pipeline replacement. And it's troubling. That's all. It's just very troubling to me that we can invent these. And when I ask, why can't we do a pipeline? Well, we don't have any money. But suddenly we get a bright, shiny toy, and we can invent $1 million. No problem. Well, $1 million would replace a pipeline. And so that's my concern,
Yeah.
Jake. Okay, and it's not that I think this is a bad project, but I do have a problem committing to this contract, which basically locks us into spending 1.8 instead of 700.
Yeah.
That's just, you see where I'm at?
I do. I do. I hear you. I will say this. I mean, going back to like La Cañada, that's in our CIP as well, and that's actually going to happen before this will. The La Cañada pipeline replacements, that was already approved in our CIP.
I
So-
didn't see it when I looked. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we well, it was
2 years.
it was splitting over 2 years. So we're going to do the pressure, we're going to do some pressure reducing, and then the pipeline replacement is this coming fiscal year. So so we are moving on that. The
But there are other pipelines
there are absolutely
that are high priority.
they are, and we have a lot of those identified in the CIP. You're right, we moved them out. They're in like year 3, so we wanted to recover as far as our reserve funding and limited CIP funding basically. This project really isn't. Again, we're asking to start the design of it. It's likely it'll be programmed in, the additional funding for construction would be programmed in likely in year 3 of the CIP because we're going to go through a year of design. We wanted to get going on the design. We're not planning on deferring pipeline projects because of that. We have a lot of pipeline projects in there too. And I think every year as we go through the CIP, that is really the, again, that's 5-year CIP will come to this committee and then it'll also go to the board. So it's really, I think there's a lot of opportunity there to voice opinions on which projects we accelerate. And you're not going to break my heart if you tell me I want the pipeline replacement to go. But I think the idea was let engineering get this design going. If you guys want to build it in year 3 or year 4, we think it'll be a very valuable project. But that would be still a committee and board discussion that occurs. So I would say we're not fully committing on 1.8 million. At some point we want to build this project, but we're not committing where it's not going to go in the CIP for next year. If you wanted to put it in for the following year, we could probably do it at that point.
What were we going to do with that temporary station under the $700,000 option?
Well, it was just going to be a lot more limited, right? We were planning on going just strictly because the issue was, operations was concerned about moving water to that gopher tank without the Weiss deal. And so it was going to be kind of a, like I said, very rudimentary just to move here to there. Turns out, I mean, again, this is kind of through a lot of discussion, planning, some operations, right? Where now we actually have moved water from Hutton through this pump station to Gopher. So tested, making sure we can go all those directions, just realizing this would be a huge benefit to operations, both, again, planned, unplanned outages, and also peak flow times.
Why can't we proceed with that and table the idea of a $1.8 million
Well,
station.
there's certainly, I mean, as we're going through design, there's opportunities to, you know, how fancy do you want this thing? But I think for full functionality, that's, you know, a lot of the expense is going to be, hey, if you want backup power, you know, you want the ability to control this thing and operate it remotely. And I think you do, because it is, you know, that's the benefit this thing's going to provide. Again, that's just an estimate at this point. It's honestly, it's my estimate. I went through and just based on my experience, hey, I know what these things, you know, kind of come in at. And I think that the thought was, hey, let's get going on design, and then, you know, every year we shuffle the pieces on that CIP, and really that has a lot of committee and board discretion on when we actually plug that money in.
No,
Sorry,
that's okay. May I suggest something if possible? We have new members on this committee. And there are some pluses and negatives in this, and also with the perception of ratepayers. May I suggest that we pause for a moment on action number 13 and go to action number 15. So every member here, that we're talking about the capital improvement project, that we do the mid-year budget review. So all of us can remember how we're doing on that. And then we can go back to this.
Okay, but we're not asking for any adjustments. It was part of the CIP, so there's no mid-year adjustment. I mean, we can talk through where we're at, but
There's no additional funds being requested for this project. We have 700,000 in the approved budget.
and you want to
Design
spend
220.
400 now,
So
so,
220.
but,
plus staff time in
but
that,
if
yeah.
you do that, you're basically making
We're making an investment. We are
you're
an investment in design.
basically, and you're also essentially saying that this will never, ever be a $700,000 project again. It will be a 1.8 or more $1 million.
We don't believe
project,
it's going to
right?
be a $700,000
Right?
project. No, you're correct.
Right.
Correct.
So there is a flag being planted in the ground here.
Well, yeah, my personal, as a member of this board or the committee, is I think it would be helpful we're talking about the capital improvement project mid-year budget. Just review it so everyone can see where we are, see where the 343,877 plugs in there, because we don't have an excess of money. And actually the CIP money, if I'm correct, is actually borrowed. It's not that.
This actually was part of the US Bank, the $10 million that funded the first 2 years of CIP. Correct.
So, I can see the reason for this. It's just, I guess my underlining thing is, can we wait on this, even if it's a while, just to see where we are?
How would you like defer it for a year, or I mean, I'm not
saying-
sure where
I think it'd be
we're
good.
headed here.
Could we, at least for my benefit, because I haven't really looked at the capital improvement project, is if the other committee members
Are you saying you want the PowerPoint, the presentation now?
Oh,
just to see it? So refresh it, and then some of us have not been on the committee, so is it possible to do that and then come
I
back?
defer to the chair. How do we take it out of order in the meeting?
And if it can't, it can't.
Well, before you consider that, I guess I've got some questions relative to the what was presented. And so from what I hear, you're asking to upgrade the development of this pump station to provide a capability to act redundantly to each one of the other 3 pump stations. Is that correct?
Supplemental to and redundant. Yes.
Okay. I mean, in a perfect world, you have a system, you want redundancy. If you have the money, what you would really like is a backup pump to every tank. Okay.
Well, we have that. We have the pump stations are basically 2+1 configuration. So you have 2 duty pumps and a
Okay.
standby. Yeah.
Okay. So if you have a backup, then I'm trying to understand the advantage that's provided by this upgrade to be, because what I understood, the capability would be to, if one of the pumps goes down, it's capable of moving the water that that pump was intended to move. And so now I hear you saying that there's redundancy that exists.
There is within the frame of the pump station, that's correct. So if, you know, if we had a single pump we needed to maintenance, yes, we can, you know, we can operate with the other two pumps. It's really more a situation. It's more against it's main brakes, it's power shutoffs, it's, you know, full pump station maintenance for whatever, you know, whatever reason might take, whether it's, you know, something happens on the suction side or the discharge side that takes a pump station out. And then on top of that, it's when we hit these peak demand periods over in that zone, you know, that a lot of times those, you know, what the tanks fluctuate or where the demand is coming from fluctuates in there. It allows us to take from places where we have, you know, the ability to move a lot of water and supplement it to another location. So it's a lot of operational flexibility is built in there as well as the emergency capabilities.
Okay, and then the way it was currently, initially being developed, it was not going to have the capability to be managed with the SCADA. Is that what you're saying? And that's
Well,
what you're adding?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea was, you know, because there was an urgency to get water from Turner over to Gopher. With us actually completing that pipeline project out on Gopher Canyon and the ability to have Dentro go direct to Gopher, you know, that the sense of urgency on like the immediate need definitely filtered out, right? But as we're looking at this thing, we're like, wow, this is actually a, you know, this project itself is really valuable more for those things, right? For the redundant capability and again, to be able to supplement, to be able to give our operators what they need to actually move water to the right spot. That's what we're
I think
after.
for the committee, and make sure I get the reservoir name, the pump skid that's out there, it was a temporary pump test, but this is designed for when we need to take Rainbow Hills
Correct.
Reservoir offline. This pump station was custom built for that project and is currently deployed and somewhere else so we can do this 1 year long pump test. The goal was to always build a permanent pump station there and return the pump skid that's being used back to operations for its intended use. It did go from rudimentary single pump station, take from Turner, pump to Gopher, to what lessons learned. West Lilac and Dentro pump stations did not get the emergency generators due to fundings. We want to build new facilities with emergency backup power, plus some new piping and valving. So it has more from the 700,000 initially budgeted 1 or 2 years ago to this could be something that provides a lot more benefit to the district.
And
The backup, missing backup generators for Lilac, and I don't know if you
Dentro.
more than one. Okay. Are those in the CIP?
Not currently.
Nope.
No.
I think those we talked about this a little bit at the board meeting that I think we are going to try to pursue those some grant funding to help fund, because those would be very, very large generators and very costly. I think we would want to yeah, we're going to pursue some grant funding. I think there's pretty good opportunity for that.
Do you have a ballpark figure of the cost?
It's, I mean, Lilac's probably $1 million.
Okay.
Rancho
Yeah.
Amigos was a little over $1 million.
Yeah, so maybe more.
Okay, so even having those,
Yeah, and that's the thing. It still doesn't provide you, you know, power outage. Yes, you know, if you just get a PSPS event, you know, that's nice to have that generator there. But all the other scenarios that occur quite often, frankly, when we main breaks and those kind of things.
So imagine if you had a main break on the suction side of Dentro Pump Station and we shut down that water line and we're in summertime flows. We don't have the ability to put any water in Gopher at that point. We've lost that ability. Or if we have a main break on the discharge side of Dentro Pump Station or anywhere along that
Right.
line, We cannot put water in Gopher.
Yeah. So you're putting it in Turner, and like Robert said, you're opening up some valves using very small diameter piping with, and it doesn't, the tanks don't just float together, right? You've actually got to draw on one to get to the other. It's just it's not a great way to operate. I mean, it might get you by, but this is really, this project actually provides that redundancy. So that's what we're asking. We just want to move forward on design. Again, the prioritization of the construction funding, which will actually be obviously the bulk of the funding. That's committee board discretion on where we slot that in. Staff will give it the first case, but if you guys want to move it around, that's discretion, but that's what we're asking today.
So I've got one more question. It sounds like if you lose power, a PSPS event, or you have a line go down, and then you have a situation where you have to have the tanks filled because of a fire, say. This is going to provide you the capability to deliver the water confidently, as opposed to trying to manage with a system that is marginal because of because of the size of the pipes and the valves that you have to open. This is a more direct delivery of a capability to the tanks. Is that right?
Spot on.
That's accurate. Yes.
Okay.
I'll-
I guess what I hear in the discussion of the other board members is a concern about what that increased cost will be. Okay. And I guess one of the questions in my mind is, can we take forward that description to go look for whatever additional grant funding we might be able to get based on fire to be able to provide for the system and have that capability? Okay.
I think there's a possibility of that too. Yes.
Okay. So, because I had a concern for the cost. Okay. But if we can phrase this as a product to be able to confidently deliver fire flow during emergencies, then I think we should be able to pursue that kind of funding and get it, especially in light of what's been going on this year in the state. And we ought to be able to look at getting this project designed so that we're ready when those funds are available.
I agree.
Okay.
So Mig, to clarify my understanding of what I heard, what you're suggesting is to have it designed, but to delay until we have the grant funding. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's the way I'm looking at it. I mean, you got to prepare the documentation. I mean, that can go on concurrently with the development of the project design, and we go for what we can get.
If we have it designed and we have the strong incentive to get grants to fund the 1 million, then it's a win-win for the ratepayers in our district.
Yeah, that's the way I see it.
So that will be, I believe, what we should discuss.
A question would be on the design itself. How durable is that? Meaning if it takes 2 to 3 years before we actually execute, how much, if any, redesign, rework would have to be done, since this stuff's sitting on a shelf for a couple of years till we execute?
Good question.
Well, the design it's a year-long period. So I think during that time, and obviously if you are going to pursue grant funding, having a design helps tremendously, right? Being shovel ready helps tremendously. So, but I think we would, obviously as soon as we kick off design, I mean, we're going to be pursuing funding for all these projects. We talked about 4 or 5 at the board meeting that we're going to pursue. And I do think there is going to be some funding out there that results from a lot of this hazard mitigation. So generators and things like this. There's it's not a bad story. And again, if the board decides, hey, let's keep pursuing grant funding and we want to you know, put it off, that, you know, that can be a decision, but,
So my,
but yeah, no, I don't think it's going to be a tremendous redesign. These aren't things that are going to evolve, you know, that are going to radically change over the course of a year. You know, these pumps have been in pumps for
Yeah.
25 years.
The
you know,
pipe, the
gets
piping
interchangeable.
staying the same,
Yeah.
you know, where the water's coming from, where it's going, all those points are staying the same.
So if there was a decision to delay,
It
for
wouldn't be a
time, it
bus-
wouldn't
a
yeah,
redesign.
it wouldn't be the worst.
unless somebody surprise regulations come in or whatever, but you can't predict that.
Yeah.
And in addition to what we've been discussing, if we are pursuing grants to include the 2 generators
Yes.
for
Those
West
are
Lilac
going
and
to be
Columbus, that they are already part of the big picture, and that's the grant. It's not just doing this, but to connect everything together. So do we have someone that is qualified to do the grant writing?
We have someone on call. We have a consultant on call.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay. Because then it's a win-win that we're collaborating to, what is it, Proposition 5? What was that was just passed in the state of California? 4?
It escapes me too. The part of it was for water resources.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay.
But I think this is more going to be coming from FEMA hazard mitigation funds through Cal OES. I think that's probably the most likely route.
Because federal funds may be starting to dry up.
Is there any further discussion on this item? Is there a motion on this item?
I so move.
You move
Option 1.
What?
option 1, Mig?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to second that.
Okay, been moved and
Do we have
seconded.
discussion?
Yes, yes.
I would like to, Meg, if you would consider in the motion to have the design approved with the intent of having the funding for the pump and all to be part of the grant.
Staff's happy to pursue grant funding along with it. Yeah.
Yeah, pursue it. We can't make a contingent. It's
Right,
pursue.
right.
Yeah.
Why not?
Because you want to make this recommendation contingent that we win a grant.
No, but I think,
Well, this is strictly for the design services.
Right.
This doesn't have anything to do with construction.
Correct.
Okay,
So
Yeah.
I
The
I
construction
don't think it would be appropriate for inclusion in this.
okay.
and does this motion mean that we are approving our intent to move forward in some fashion with a $1.8 million project?
Certainly on the design portion, yes. There'll be a future action by the committee and board if we decide to move forward again. You'll have a second crack, but this is for the design.
With the Dexter contract's only for 220, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, you're really not committing the 700.
No, not even, no.
only 220.
Where's 220? Oh, here we go.
But you're committing to design a project that pencils out at $1.8 million. That's what you're doing. Okay, as opposed to what was originally in the CIP, which is a project that was supposed to be $700,000. That's what we're doing here. And you're not going to get much use out of a design for a $1.8 million project if you suddenly decide at some future date that never mind, we can do a scale back. Now you're gonna buy another design to do a scale back to get it back down to 700 or to 800 or some other number. That's all. I'm just pointing that out. Okay. You're basically putting a stake in the ground that says one way or another, we're going to spend 1.8 million bucks here. That's what's going on right now. And I just have a problem with that
Right.
because I think we are inflating a project by $1 million, but I don't see everyone scurrying around getting pipeline replacement work done. But we are willing to throw all our energy into inflating this and expanding this scope of work and getting the design rolling, and I don't see any action inside the department that says that we're working just as aggressively on replacing pipeline. I don't see that. That's what troubles me. And so for me, this project is just an example of misplaced priorities. That's where I'm at. I'm a misplaced priority here. I think we should be scurrying around like crazy to replace more pipe, more failing pipe, rather than buying another shiny toy, where we just bought $10 million worth of shiny toys for 3 of them. And that's just where I'm at. So I'll leave it
It's
at
actually
that.
more like
I'll leave it at that.
it's 50.
Jake, there's
I'd just like to say something real quick.
yeah, go ahead.
And maybe what staff could do right now is explain to the committee why the priorities are what they are. Obviously, there's money in the CIP for some pipeline replacement, correct?
Correct. Yes, in the
So-
5-year CIP,
so
correct.
In the order of priorities, what I hear the discussion is about, staff recommended priorities. And
Yeah.
maybe if you could kind of lay that out, why this is a high enough priority that we might be able to delay other priorities, might help the board kind of understand why you're making this recommendation.
Yeah, and I think that's still up for debate on where we want to prioritize this project. So I just want to make that clear. It's just, we do want to move forward on the design, so it's ready to go when we want to do this, because operationally it is one of the higher priorities. We have some other ones in there. Lookout Pump Station, that's for next year too. We want to start design on that. That's a high priority. That's more of a rehabilitation. A lot of the pipeline replacement projects, they are high priorities. They are high cost as well. But we started, La Cañada, that was the first one. And so that was actually the first project in our CIP. Partially funded this year, partially funded next year. I believe the big push was going to be in years, and I'm going back to, we're almost through year 1, but the big push was going to be in years 3 and 4. And you do see quite a bit of pipeline replacement in those years. A lot of those have already been designed, right? They were designed and then
As part of the PUP program? Yeah.
yes, and shelved. So I guess my point is, I don't think this is a higher priority than those pipeline replacements. I don't think so, but we have the opportunity. We don't have any design work done on this. We have the opportunity to do some design work on it and get it ready. And there is potential for grant funding. And so I think prioritizing the design at this point is really what we want to do. That's really what we're after. Again, if we want to push more funding towards pipeline replacements, I think we would like to get this done alongside those, but it's not a higher priority than the pipeline replacements, to be honest. It's just, we want to move in parallel with these things and get it done. That's what we're after.
And to Director Irvine's question,
Okay, one other comment. Congressman Issa is always looking for earmark projects, okay? So this is another opportunity to go and pursue funds where you have something ready to be done, shovel ready, then he can insert and have the opportunity to secure funds for the district. But if you don't have it ready, it's not going to be, he won't take action on it, okay? It's just the type of thing that to me, it's an investment, okay? It's some seed money, but if you want the opportunity to be able to pursue grant money, earmarks, you have to get something done.
But
Can I ask a clarifying question? We're not really talking about 220, we're talking about 275, correct?
it was 220.
220.
Because if you include environmental planning and staff labor, it increases it to 200.
Well, yeah, yes. 220 is for the design contract. That's the approval. But yeah, you have staff time, and eventually you'll have to do some environmental when we get to that point. Yep.
Jake, I see 4 pieces to this. You've got the design, you've got all the new piping configurations, you got generator and pump. You could direct the design so that the piping design flows out and still operate this with the old pump, the borrowed pump, without the generator. If you wanted to implement this, if you had to implement it, by the careful design of the new piping, you want to be able to flow everything around. And that certainly the piping changes plus the design are going to be way less than the 1.8 million if you get to that point. So that's another way of looking at it. You might be able to implement.
Phased implementation.
So we are still at the point where Mig moved and Steve seconded, right? That we proceed with option one, and I believe
which is recommending to the board approval
Award of the design contract.
For design only, it is.
for the design contract.
right
commitment to the
says-
Future.
approve,
So
approve,
cap at the,
approve the
so
professional
is that a change
services
order?
agreement with Dexter Wilson Engineering, Inc. for design services for the Gopher Pump Station. So that is what is before us at this time.
Correct.
Right? That's what before us. Is there any further discussion? If not, let's have a roll call vote.
Member Nelson,
Abstain.
member McKesson,
Aye.
member Marnett,
Aye.
member Irvine,
Abstain.
member Johnson,
no,
Doesn't carry.
right.
Aye,
Oh,
Wait, Meg?
Member Gasca,
aye,
so with 2 abstentions, 3-1, is that okay, Therese?
we have 2 abstentions and a no. So we have 3. We have, that was an aye from
Mig,
McKesson, Mig, and Marnett.
So we have 3 ayes, 1 no, and 2 abstentions. Is that correct?
Mhm. Yes, so that's
Okay. All right.
3 votes would be successful.
So
if it doesn't pass, I would suggest that it come back to the committee next month.
I think it did, right?
the ayes have it.
3,
Okay.
we would need. How many members on this committee?
We have 6.
6. So we have half have voted yes, and so it is basically,
abstentions.
yeah, and 2 abstentions and 1 no. So I guess the staff has the option of taking this to the board the way it is, with noting that that it was not able to get a majority of the committee to approve. Or we can have some further conversation and discuss it at a future meeting.
Yeah, I think we're okay moving it forward.
Okay, all right. And if we do move forward as the chair, I will need to report to the board, obviously, that there was considerable discussion and hesitancy in addition to the 3 votes. And I'll do my best to be as honest and accurate as I can, putting personal stuff aside on my own personal views about this. And
Yeah, as long as we make it clear that the hesitancy was localized.
Yeah.
Right, and not broad.
Right.
Right? Hesitancy is coming from
Right.
select individuals and not the broad committee.
Yeah, I guess one recommendation I'd make is that you double check on Robert's rules to determine whether it did pass or didn't.
2 abstentions, it's 3-1.
Because the abstentions have somewhat of an impact.
you're right,
It
Mick.
was a 3-1 vote.
You're right, Mig.
Yeah.
Yep, you're right. The abstentions mean those votes don't count, and therefore it's 3-1.
Right.
3-1. All right,
Okay.
I will try to make a reasonable explanation to the board, because they probably will be curious as to what that vote is about. And okay,
They
I
will.
understand. I understand.
Appreciate that.
All right, let's move on.
Let's talk about mowing.
Yahoo. Okay. Item 14, consider an agreement with Specialty Mowing Services for weed abatement and brush clearing services at district facilities. district-wide.
Okay. It's been a while since we've had a formalized district-wide weed abatement service. It last time was in 2019. Interestingly enough, was awarded to Specialty Mowing Services back then as well. This process was competitively bid. We used Planet Bids to bid this project. We did 2 non-mandatory tours of the majority of the sites. We didn't make it to all sites, but we let the contractors who showed up say, hey, these are the sites we'd like to prioritize on these tours. 3 companies showed up to both of the day tours. They were all day long. In it, we received a total of 3 bids. One of them was deemed non-responsive. This was listed as an RFP, and it was the middle of the road. Bidder did not submit a proposal. They just filled out their bid sheet, and so there was nothing for staff to review. The other 2, Powerland Equipment Incorporated, came in on an annual basis of $732,722, and Specialty Mowing Services Incorporated, $297,574. So with that, there in the board memo, it lists all the different sites that are included. This truly is district-wide. This not only includes a tank or a reservoir, this includes the roads leading up to it. It has fence line perimeters. It has, if you're within a structure, how many feet apart we are. So the goal is to go out and Ahmed queued it up. Thank you. I sent our senior inspector out to just a couple of the local sites a couple days ago just to take some pictures. So this is one of the ones. This was done less than 1 year ago. This is the Camino del Rey, and Rey is spelled wrong, but we'll fix that later. Camino del Rey Bridge. You can see the vegetation coming up and around our pipeline on this. And this is for when the operations crews need to go out there and work on it. We can't have brush and trees growing up around it. Here's our gopher tank. Again, we're talking, member Marnette talked about the Hutton tank and the fire that came through. I actually have some photos of that one of some vegetation. We've done a pretty good job since 2020 to present day of addressing sites on a case-by-case basis and issuing individual POs. We have not had an annual contract that addressed all sites. So we've hit some of them, but you could see a lot of the vegetation starting to grow around, especially on our fence line perimeters. System operators, every time they're at a tank, they're checking that fence line to make sure that it's still intact and we don't want the vegetation coming over it.
Wasn't the gopher tank where the owner that's in proximity wasn't too happy with us going outside the fence to try and clear brush?
I don't recall any complaints from an adjacent resident at Gopher Tank. This is right across the street from the Weiss treatment plant.
Okay. All right.
Here's your Hutton tank. You could see a little bit in that center photo, some of the fire that came through, but we really do try and do a good job of keeping that vegetation down. Not only so we have vehicular access, but also we don't want fire hazards. This is another bridge. This is the Musa Bridge in our 14-inch pipeline. And again, starting to come right up and over it. Sometimes we get lucky in the county will do this as part of their tree trimming or weed abatement program. Most often they do not. The Musa Camino del Rey. So this is one of our sewer. We had to unlock the gate and walk in. This is supposed to be a 20-foot wide easement big enough for a Vector truck to get through. And this is actually one of the widest areas right now, and it's less than 10 feet wide. It's just completely overgrown. The Morrow Reservoir. So at Morrow Reservoir, we have the Morrow Reservoir, we have the chemical injection facility, and we have the Morrow tank. It's all on the same lot of land. When I first started here in 2019, that asphalt road that you show that's going down to the chemical injection facility, you couldn't drive. It was scratching all the vehicles. We've done a pretty good job, and the system operators, as they go out to these sites, they'll stop, get some loppers out and make it so that the truck can drive down. Here's the Morrow tank. Again, you can see vegetation coming up and over the barbed wire fence, which defeats the entire purpose of having a barbed wire fence. That was just that for that. I just wanted to give some background on this. Doesn't show more than half of the different sites and the easements and all of that. But this was a competitively bid process. The professional service agreement is for 3 years. It is annual. This was a previous question that the committee asked, I think at its December or January meeting.
January, yeah.
And we confirmed with the finance department, the funds are budgeted on a fiscal basis. And we now the two departments, engineering, operations, and finance, if there's any funds that need to roll over, that is carried forward. And so anything less that we need to add would come before the board for an appropriation increase. There's also the component to this was we did receive $160,000 Cal OES grant. That is specific sites. It's not every site within the proposal here. So when we are addressing those sites, which are in this contract, those funds will come out of the grant, and then any other sites come out of this. And at the end of going into the new fiscal 25-26 budget, we'll figure out where we are within the funds remaining and how much more is need to be allocated. And so that's why we tried to make it as clear as possible in this memo that there's two fund sourcing. We're not asking for an allocation of funds at this time. The contractor spend rate will get us through this fiscal year, and we'll address going into FY 25-26. And with that, happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
So this is a time and materials as needed up to amount that we're approving, not a fixed contract?
It's by site.
It
Is by site.
the bid schedule lists each site, and the contractor provided a cost for each of those sites. And then the only variable there is there's a $40,000 contingency for when residents call us, hey, you have an easement going through my property I just got notice from the fire department, needs to be cleared. We'll go clear our easement. We don't go anything beyond that, but those aren't listed in the bid proposal. And so that's where we would use the contingency.
So it's a fixed price per site, and then as many times a year that these
They have to
sites-
go a minimum once per year.
Minimum once?
Yes.
Okay, all right, and then a callback would be that fixed price again for a callback? or-
Correct.
There's no max.
There is the max. The max is the
If we
agreement.
did every site and all the contingency,
Yeah.
use that whole 40,000, it'd be 297.
That is the absolute max.
With once per year.
Correct.
If you had multiple callbacks, we had
Yeah.
a
And
year like last year where things grew so much.
in the 6 years that we've started doing this, we have not had to go back to the same site multiple times in a calendar year.
Okay,
When it goes down, we keep it to where we don't want any runoff. They keep it about 3-inch-ish instead of just making it completely bare, and they spray where it needs to be sprayed, and we haven't had to go back. It's when we don't go back for a year or 3 or more that they get really overtaken.
What spray is being used?
So that is listed in I don't have that offhand, but I can find that out. It's called out in their agreement.
Okay, so in their environmentally.
It met all county and state compliance, yes.
All right.
And I may have missed something in your presentation. At the bottom of page 1 on the board action, it says 3 firms responded with a proposal on January 16th, and I see 1 firm listed, Pest Options. What are the other 2? I know Specialty Mowing is a certain, and then,
I think there's a table.
well,
Yeah,
it
there-
didn't print right on your.
yeah,
Oh,
mine is blank, so is
Yeah.
Julie's
Yeah,
blank. We have
interesting.
Pest,
Yeah.
that's a printing problem.
Okay. I'll read them
That's
to
why
you.
we've been looking.
How
at
interesting.
it.
Okay.
right.
Apologies for that.
Be disrespectful. We're just looking, trying
So
to
the-
find
Here,
it.
let me see.
Yeah.
That's really strange.
I don't know how that happened.
okay, Pest Options 438, non-responsive, Powerland 732, and this was their annual cost. Okay, responsive, not recommended, and Marty at 297, right? Okay, gotcha. Any further discussion?
Yeah, one question. So how does staff, oversee the efforts of the contractor? Is there someone that goes out at the end of when they complete a job at a certain site, or how exactly does that work?
That is a great question. Yeah. So in 2019, that was myself when I was the project manager. Now that responsibility is the senior inspector. And with the grant requirement, we have to have before and after photos. So they do a tailgate on site before anything. They ensure that the schedule doesn't interfere with any red flag warnings or anything like that. Regardless of whether it's a grant site or not, the inspector will meet with the contractor at each site, do before and after pictures for each one, and cancel any work that was scheduled for a red flag day.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. Great question.
And it's there. It's so
I don't
weird.
know how.
That is so weird.
Yeah.
Are there any further comments or questions for the staff? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
So move.
Julie moves that we recommend the board option one. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Steve seconds. Is there any discussion, any further discussion? Therese,
Yes.
roll call.
Member Nelson,
Aye.
member McKesson,
Aye.
member Marnet,
Aye.
member Irvine, member Johnson,
Aye.
member Gasca,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay, motion carries. We'll move on now to item number 15, capital improvement CIP mid-year budget review. Looking forward to this.
Okay, and I want to introduce two people in our room. Here we have Brian and Morteza. They're from Atlas Engineering. They have been monitoring the Morrow tank because as we go through this presentation, each project has one slide with the exception of Morrow. We're going to dive in really deep because we've been analyzing that tank for a little over a year. Also online, we have the engineering team listed as panelists, and we have Joe Weber from Acrostic, who when Amanda Para resigned her position here and we did not backfill the project manager position, we are using a third party. And so Joe Weber is also online to answer questions. With that, I'll get started. Okay, so here's where we are. We're going into the mid-year adjustment. This is going to February's budget and finance and February's board meeting, correct?
Correct.
So we've been working a lot with the finance department and the general manager going through. So if you attend the budget and finance, you're going to see the exact same slide here. This is where we were with the approved fiscal budget, where we're in year one, 24, 25.
Is
Approved.
that in the packet?
No,
Do we have printouts?
It's not in the packet.
no,
Oh, well, because this is informational presentation only.
Okay.
but that's
Just-
why I think I asked to see it because we didn't have it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
Let
don't.
me print out some table.
Sure.
Thank you.
Do you want hard copy PowerPoints? We don't normally include those as part of the agenda. I
No,
don't
no,
think.
it's just, sometimes it's hard to see the little
Got
print,
it.
so
Is it bigger on there?
we're not really trying to cause problems
Oh,
here.
sure. Speak for yourself, Julie.
Here we go. There we go. For those of us who need it. Thank you for being here, both of you. We appreciate it.
I told them at the beginning, I hope we have time to do this and it's
Yeah.
not deferred like we did one. It's
Yeah.
scheduled in like June. We didn't get to
Yeah.
October.
Well, we took so long on item number 13.
Lucky number 13. I'm gonna make that Robert's item next time.
It would have passed.
Oh,
Well, while we're off the record, the reason I voted no was I feel there was just certain included that once it was included, I would have voted for it. To set the record straight.
I didn't even see Trace get out of the chair.
Yeah. We're just waiting on you. No, I'm kidding. We're actually gonna print out some of these, the mid-year budget slides so you can read it.
Well, then I too will.
Yeah, we can take a break. Are we taking an official break? Should I? Yeah, if you want to.
Oh, we're taking a break? Okay.
Yeah.
Julie has advised that she's okay if we go ahead and start. She'll be back with us in a second. So Chad.
Okay.
Reload.
All right. So first slide here is all of our year one CIPs. Your first column is your approved 24-25 budget. Second column is the approved amendments. Then you have your current budget, any mid-year requests that are being made, both requested allocations and or deductions, and then the mid-year adjusted balances. And as we go through the slides, we're going to dive in on every single one of these. So if it's all right with the committee, I'll keep on going. Okay. So we're starting with the water projects. The first one is the West Lilac, Rancho Amigos, and Dentro de Lomas pump stations. It is complete. Contractor is working on its last change order, which was a credit to the district of $18,000. There's a lot of other stuff being done in there, but they're working on their final punch list and a couple other added items that the district needs. So we are on schedule for the notice of completion on that project going before the board at the March board meeting. District headquarters is ongoing. We're working with engineering firm specifically focusing on building 1, the re-roofing and HVAC of the building we're currently sitting in. We're working with a second architect firm on building number 2, which has been named Chernobyl. And rather than just keeping that building as an abandoned asset, what can be done with that? So Ahmed and I, was that last week that we met with them? Just met with them last week. We're working on redesign of that, of what options do we have keeping that building and doing a tenant improvement over there? So we're working simultaneously on both buildings, 2 different firms. The pressure reducing stations, there are 3 remaining in the lower yard, Robert, or are you down to 2? 3, 2 of which are accounted for. 2 of them are earmarked for the La Cañada pressure reducing station. And then in year 2 is the actual pipeline replacement portion of that same project. So those are, and we don't have any plans currently. This was when we bought 10 of these back in, I think, 2018. There's no current plan to replenish that with 5 or 10 more of those. We'll buy them as needed, or operations builds these in-house as well. So it's kind of a combination of the both. The isolation valve installation program ongoing. That's why it said this is a revolving. This is like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. This project's never going to be completed. And you can see in the fiscal years, years where we are doing procurement and labor, such as year 2, and then year 3, it drops back down. That's labor only, and then vice versa. So we kind of leapfrog it like that.
I'll say on this one too, this is one of the ones where we're actually asking for some additional funding. We had budgeted $100,000. We're looking for 50,000 more. We're just trending a little over on this one. And it can happen because a lot of times when these guys have, whether it's an emergency or a planned improvement, that's where a lot of these things come in. Basically, while we're out there doing the shutdown, now we got valves we know we need to take care of. Let's, package that work within that. And they've done quite a bit of it this year. And so that's kind of what it's actually a good thing. Like if we, the hard part is actually getting to the work in between all the emergency work. But actually when we can do these things, it's such a good system improvement. So but that is one of the ones we're looking for. Additional 50,000 to get us through the end of this fiscal year. In-house work.
Manual transfer switches project. This goes back to Member McKesson's comment earlier on. This was designed in 2021. We are going back to that design firm with some small edits to that design, and then scheduled to go out to bid in March of this calendar year, out to construction in April, May, or it says May there, bidding May. So we're going to try and do that in April and May, but we have May there to be conservative. These are the last 3 remaining sites we need to upgrade. Camino del Rey water line. So we actually had a meeting with the County of San Diego also a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was a productive meeting. They are having some right-of-way issues on their project, so they are delayed as far as their design. They were at 100% design. They're going back to the drawing board and gonna redo the alignment. Rainbow is going to incorporate the improvements that we need into their drawings, and the 2 agencies, Rainbow and the county, will work together. Go ahead. Right-of-way issues on the road alignment and taking people's driveways and moving fence lines and
So they're redesigning a portion of this to, yeah.
And what is our piece?
So we have a pipeline there, and basically they're adding, what are they adding? 8 feet. You know, they're basically
Yeah.
raising the road by 8 feet, which would just absolutely
I
bury.
remember
So
that.
there's a
Yes.
pipeline relocation.
I remember now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we still have, there's a couple pieces to this. It's been delayed and it's going to be a pretty significant delay. They're talking about end of 26, probably early 27 before they're actually ready to go, potentially. And I think they still have some other things to work on too. So there's some time here. We wanted to meet with them to make sure that we had a good plan going forward, because in the past, I know, it's been a little bit difficult, when we've had these Live Oak Bridge project, great example. But wanted to, make sure that we had our sequencing, everything was in one set of contract docs and those kind of things. And so the counties at this point, everybody's on board with that as the best approach. So that's the productive part that Chad was talking about. We still have some prior rights issues that we're going to have to work out on this alignment. We've got some easements. They've got some old easements. We've got some old easements, and they all kind of tangle together. So that's a second piece to it. And that's really kind of what this budget was for, was to really dive into that. We've done quite a bit of work actually on our side in preparation of that, a lot of survey work and others, well, we've done a lot of, we've done some work on that.
Why isn't that a reimbursement item with the county?
So, well, that's what I'm talking about. We have our pipeline kind of sits on the edge of the roadway. It has an easement from, what was it, 1960s?
Yep.
Yeah, original 1960s. Originally, the county documentation, ours was older, basically. So we would have prior rights, which means any relocation would be on the county's dime. They did come up with a document from 1898 that has, some county road going through there, and so that's why we're doing a lot of. So we're going to end up somewhere where they're going to do the road. We're going to have to relocate the pipeline. Who's paying for it is still up in the air. That's why you don't see a budget there. Yeah. So.
Okay.
And this 100,000 is basically staff and the occasional as needed to do a survey or do a little something.
It was
That's really
mostly
it.
survey, easement, right away.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
A little bit of legal maybe too.
When the real work happens, this is going to turn into millions in year 3, 4, and
It's how much roadway? It's about a mile.
Yep.
It's about a mile of roadway and pipeline. So 5,000 feet, you can guarantee it's going to be more than $1 million. Yes. For that relocation in total. It's a pipeline that's deep already. We've had main breaks on it. It's not, to be quite honest, not the worst project, but who's paying for it is still under negotiation. Yeah.
But great question, and to be determined right now.
okay.
So Water Authority connections 1, 8, 9, and 10 acquisition
It's done.
done. Love it. Connections 3, 6, 7, 11 interim decommission. You'll see that has been canceled. And if you go to the corresponding hard copy spreadsheet that you have, that money is no longer necessary and is being reallocated.
See, you guys approved a $220,000 design contract, but I'm giving you 200,000 back on this project. So this is what's occurred here. Initially, as part of our settlement agreement, we had interim decommissioning step, which was really County Water Authority was planning on going out and removing sections of pipe and putting blind flanges and that. So we had budgeted 200,000 as the cost to do that. And as we got through the operations plans and those kind of things, came to light that these actually could be valuable you know, they're their facilities. These are county water authority facilities, but they want to use them for, you know, one's going to be a blow off, one's going to be, you know, something else. So their operations staff basically came to the table and said, no, don't just demo these facilities. We can use that, we can use that, we can use that. And so it basically eliminated the need for this interim decommissioning and greatly reduced the scope of the permanent decommissioning. So, which is actually was the bigger item. It was a couple of years out because we did program in the CIP, or we basically made it a condition that we could program it into our CIP. They couldn't just spring it on us whenever they felt like doing this demolition, because we knew it was going to be pricey, but it's going to be much less because a lot of the facilities are going to be reused. So this 200,000 is going back into the CIP. We will not spend it, and then we'll be adjusting that future project downwards to be more reflective of the actual work that's going to take place. So we're always coming to you for requests. Here we're trying to give it back. We're trying to give it back.
So some money available for pipeline replacement.
That's it. We're scurrying around as we speak.
This is a new project prior to it, and we have a project number for it now, but it was added after the presentation was made. But the Morrow Tank rehabilitation, and this is where we're going to dive in on this one now. This was originally just being charged through the engineering operating budget. We had Atlas out there working with the inclinometers. We're now going to be working with a structural engineer and a land surveying firm. And so it's going to be this multi-faceted effort to continue monitoring, but monitoring at a deeper level to ultimately come out with a recommendation. This tank can be fixed in this manner for this much, or this tank needs to be completely demoed and rebuilt. So more to come on this, but part of that 200,000 that the general manager so graciously gave back, we were able to create a project here with 100,000.
You scurried around to find a use for it. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Who's the survey company that's supporting you guys?
We don't have the survey listed yet. We reached out to our on-call as needed and are still negotiating with all of those firms to get their proposals.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And
So
this would be a geotech, right?
this is well, the geotech is in the room. That's Atlas. They're with the inclinometers. The land surveyor will set these survey benchmarks, both horizontally and vertically. We want to set them on the roof of the tank, around the tank, to see what this tank is doing. And then a structural engineer to evaluate all of this data, coordinate with the other two disciplines, and come up with a mutual recommendation of what we can do here. A lot is going to be on the geotech firm sitting in the room.
And we are doing this through our as needed, our suite of as needed consultants.
With the exception of structural, we have civil firms. We don't have a structural list. We don't use structural very often. But yeah, the on-call as needed for the geotech that we've been doing, the inclinometers was done through the on-call, and so is the land surveying effort. Yes.
So is the structural going to be a separate contract or a sub to the geo or to the land survey?
To be determined right now. We're working with all entities to see how this is going to come together.
Okay, thank you.
But also be creative and just declare that for the purposes of this, that structural is basically under the rubric of civil, and get your civil guy to bring in a structural person. Pretty close.
Yeah, team.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Just thinking, make it simple.
Okay. On this one, in the scope of what Atlas has been helping the district with, and again, Joe Weber with Acrostic on this, we were able to identify a lot of old data back from 1967 and the original grading done in 72. And when this was first constructed and first identified as Houston, we have a problem kind of a thing. This was not in 2021 or 22 when the current staff figured this out. This had actually been going on, but these reports were discovered during this effort. So we could talk about, we talked about this earlier, some of those unusable soils, highly expansive clay soils is what was actually used for the fill section of this tank.
This is not on this list, right?
It is.
It is, it's at the very bottom.
That's the ad mid-year request. We're requesting to add this
It's
project.
the last row.
Rancho Montserrat.
More,
Under the water. So up from subtotal there, Morrow Tank rehabilitation.
I thought that's what we were discussing when we were talking about structural and geotech.
That's
and
what we're talking about. Yes.
This is all the same thing.
All one and the same. This is I have
All right.
11 slides on this one
Okay.
project. We're going to dive in because this is something that has been brought to the E&O committee for over a year with some updates. We now have some really good updates for you. So we're diving in deep on this one. Staying on this project.
Okay.
Okay, so here is the geological conditions. And again, we have experts in the room if we want to mic them up and call on them, but this is where we're showing some past inclinometers, all the topography out there. Again, can we get them a mic just in case? Thank you. Because I don't want you to feel like if you have something to add, I want you to be able to add it, please. This is the table that Atlas has put together for us, talking about elevations. This shows where the 2 inclinometers have been installed and the different types of material. And so again, if the committee has any questions, just please interrupt us as we go and we'll pause and talk about it.
Yeah, the TSA material, what's the composition of it?
Yeah, that's Santiago Formation, and it's interbedded sandstone and claystone siltstone package.
Okay, and so the interface plane between AF and TSA, is that a slip plane effectively?
So no, so the contact between the AF and TSA is an estimated removals made during grading for the tank pad. So presumably when they had to build this pad as a cut fill lot, so they needed to cut on the stand here. They needed to cut on this side of the tank.
He can't
here.
see what you're pointing.
You can't see what I'm pointing
No.
at?
That's okay, go ahead.
That's going to use his
Yeah.
cursor for you.
There you go.
They needed to cut from existing grades on that portion of the tank and place the fill over where the AF,
See it.
the grade block is thicker. So bench back into the rock, going back, I guess into the hillside there. So that stair step contact you see, it was made during grading, but it is an estimation because the as graded reports for this construction are not available. I don't know if they exist or not, but we don't.
We don't think they exist.
So this is estimated based on, boring. So like the SC BH3 correlates to a boring that was done by Sladden Engineering back in like 2012. And then you have other borings done by Moore and Tabor in the 90s, and then borings done by us in 2022.
Got it. What's the composition of QRS?
That is a residual soil. So it's a clay, very, very, very weathered bedrock and topsoil type material, organic, kind of bad, generally bad material from an engineering standpoint. And the AF material is comprised of, it's generally clay. You have high plasticity clays in there. So very, very expansive materials, sandy clays, sands. It's kind of a hodgepodge of whatever they had when they were grading, but that Santiago Formation does have a pretty large claystone member in it. So a lot of the material they were using was actually clay. And there's also volcanic ash in the area, oddly enough, which is again extremely expansive and highly clay, very, very, very clay. So that fill mass in general is very clay.
And where are the inclinometers? Can you just use your pointer to?
Yeah, so the ASI1 shows one of the inclinometers. This cross section shows one slice through the site.
Okay.
Yeah, if you go back, this figure here shows all of the previous investigations that have been performed at this site throughout the years. The site has been investigated numerous times for this same issue. So just going back to the beginning, those orange and gray borings that say MMT, those were done by Moore and Tabor in the 90s. I think it's 1991. The M&T rectangles at the top were done in 1993 after some landslides affected the cut slopes. Then you have SC, Sladden Engineering, those were done in 2012. And then the Atlas stuff is green and blue. So we have an inclinometer right here, and then we have another one right here. they were cited to be in the areas where the fills are the deepest because through all of the through our review of all the existing documents there, the movement has really been attributed to the highly expansive fill soils, which they expand and contract as they go through wetting and drying cycles and laterally creep towards the slope, and then also fill settlement. So the inclinometers were cited where the fill was the deepest, where we would expect to see the most movement. And that cross section you're seeing is one idealized profile. So if you go back, that's that green line.
Are
basically.
two enough?
2 inclinometers.
Yeah. Yeah. For,
I mean,
for
basically
this-
you're covering 90 degrees
And then we're
of
gonna have the
180.
land survey benchmarks as well.
Those, yeah.
Okay, so here's a timeline of the whole project. When it was first designed in 67, constructed in 72, first investigated for movement in 83. Again, the first inclinometers and benchmarks 85 and 91, more in 91, slope failures occurring in 93, more investigation in 13. Kennedy Jenks hired to do an investigative report in 2015. And then the district most recently contracting with Atlas in late 2023 and ongoing. Some, again, diving way deep into the weeds on the past investigations. And then going forward from the 80s to the early 90s, kind of building upon that. And more. Getting us up to 2013. And then Kennedy Jenks, this is when this consultant told the district, yeah, it's moving, but you could operate it at 50%. And operations, you took it offline initially, and it went back on in about 2020 at 50%.
Yes.
So it's been operating.
And the prior consultancies over the prior decade and a
Use it.
half,
Just
what
use
did
it.
they say?
You can use it. It was just
No
monitoring.
issue.
Chad, what does a 75% design life mean?
So it's designed to last X number of years, and it has reached the 75% of that life of its expectancy. So if we design a pipe to last 100 years and you get to that 75 mark, you start planning its replacement.
Very forward, okay.
How many gallons is in this tank?
It can hold up to 4. We currently operate it at about 2. Because we're running at half capacity. Mm-hmm. Okay.
When we go to replace it, since you brought up end of life, is this the site that we would replace at, or is there a better preferred site where it should be, a new tank should be positioned?
This is the site that it would have to be replaced at because of the hydraulics. So it's supplying water to some of the higher elevations around Morrill Reservoir. And there's no other sites that are higher than this one. We can't go up on the Indian trails. We'd have to buy private property and maybe, we'd have to buy private property and get into all that. So we'd be looking at rehab, subgrade, or maybe even doing deep pilings, something like that. I don't know. I've seen that done before on unstable ground.
Yeah. How large is this total site? Is there room to build a tank adjacent to it?
There is room. We own property next to this tank. There is room, but whether that would take more borings and geotechnical investigation to see what the difference is between that parcel over there and where we're at right now.
Okay, thank you.
But this would be multi-years to tear this down and put it up. So can you withstand being without this tank for a couple of years?
So we can operate, so it's a unique situation. So having this tank online allows us to inflow Morrill with more water, which will be critical during the summertime now that we're feeding the southern pump stations with Morrill water. Did we have it out of service, as Chad mentioned? Yes, we did have it out of service before. In this new operating condition, we would have to try it this summer and see what the impact would be. And I would try that well ahead of time to make sure that we could take it offline. Yeah. Otherwise, we'd have to explore the option of using that property next door to build an adjacent tank, and then once it's constructed and everything, you just
Yeah, and I think that's really, I mean, the purpose of this study is to determine how bad is it? And, what options do we have either for rehabilitation, or is the recommendation going to be to replace the thing? And then we'd have to program it in our CIP and figure all those logistics out on how we replace it. How big do you have to replace it? Is it the same site or adjacent? I mean, that'd be kind of the next step. We'd be asking for another design contract approval.
and do we need a 4 million gallon tank there? Could we get away with the 2 million gallon tank? I mean, we've been using it at half full, so.
Yeah,
All
demands
that
are
has
not
to
what
be
they were, right?
What division is this? By Sleeping Hill?
It's
Two.
Sleeping Indian.
I think it's
yeah.
2.
So that
So
area
it's-
is not potential for a great deal of growth then, correct?
No.
That's pretty stable.
So it's the top of Sleeping Indian, like Sleeping Indian and Wilshire, Sleeping Indian and Indian Trails.
Okay.
There's nothing scheduled.
Rural residential, yeah, a little bit of ag.
And we're not supplying that new development at Wilshire and
No,
North
that's
County.
City of
that's
Oceanside.
Oceanside water
Right,
and Oceanside sewer. Yeah.
That's the last slide we have on the Morrow update. Again, we'll be reaching out to some other disciplines and continuing to update the committee as new developments occur.
So has the demand for water there decreased like it has in the rest of the area?
I believe so.
2 million tank might work.
I mean, we've been running it at 50% capacity without any issues. So it's a good possibility that a smaller tank would work fine for us.
But we would go through the process and take a look at, demand, fire flow, all that to make sure we size it up right. But we would do a resizing, not just replace in kind.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So these are some of the interconnects that are scheduled for this fiscal year. This is Maravilla to Maravilla. This is the next two are between FPUD and Rainbow. So working on some interconnects. This is going to be done via Force account. So the operations crews will be doing this. We'll work with some design work. This is similar to what the operations crew did up at the CAL FIRE camp, where we hired a firm. We got it to approximately 60-ish% design. So we have some as-built. We know what's there. But to date, lots of coordination between FPUD and Rainbow and getting ready to start procuring material. This one actually is on a private road, so we're working with some right-of-way issues on this one and landowners on which side can actually go on. So this is ongoing. Olive Hill to Olive Hill, this is shovel ready. We need to procure and go. This was a categorical exemption. It's been filed with the County of San Diego. We've met with the operations department. We're working with FPUD. And so this will be the first one of these two to actually break ground and go in the ground. And then the La Cañada pipeline replacement. So this is a multi-year effort. Year one, which we're in right now, is to install the 2 pressure reducing stations. Again, already procured. They're in the lower yard. They're earmarked for this. And then in year 2, go out and replace the pipe once it's on its new.
Have we done the design for that?
There's as far the design for the PRV stations or the pipeline.
Pipeline.
So no design, staff's doing it in-house, and it's basically the same, right? We're gonna lay an 8-inch pipeline. Hydrants are gonna stay in the same places.
More of an
Your services,
as-built revision.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, local road.
the goal is to go to one of the 4 civils, have it surveyed, and then get an as-built done of it was installed X feet off the roadway at this depth, so we know where everything is, but it doesn't require full design.
And this would be a in-house job?
Correct. Yeah.
When we do that, the hydrants go literally right next to each other, the old hydrant, new hydrant. And then the meters, the new meter service comes up in the meter box or right next to the old one. So it's pretty easy design.
How are the ratepayers being notified of all of this?
So normally on these, we'll do project signs, but also do reach out to them with mailers. So I'm sure Carlene, her team and Amanda will work on letting everybody know what we're going to be doing out
So
there.
yeah, with Amanda
long?
Weber here now, we've already started. So we work with Amanda Weber. We make sure that the general manager, human resources manager, everyone knows. And before we go out there and break ground, we've done the outreach that is done.
Yeah. Pressure reducing stations will be a little less intensive,
yeah.
but when the pipeline goes, that's
Yeah.
going to be more because you're going to have
You start running up and down the whole entire street.
Yeah.
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 The pressure stations, you're just staying on the edge of the road right there. It's like fixing a fire hydrant.
Are
in
those
one
surface
spot.
mount then or
Yeah.
pressure?
Yep.
When is that work gonna be done?
Should be done by the.
Before June 30th of this year?
Yeah.
The pressure reducing stations.
The pressure,
correct.
yeah.
I know they're on Issa's list. Had a few emergencies had to deal with, but it's on his list.
And La Cañada in year 2, we were talking about this earlier. I pulled it up, but the discussion went on, but this is one of 2 pipelines. This is in year 2. So there's this one and another one in year 2. And then as Jake said, year 3, year 4, year 5, that's when the pipelines really start to come into replacement.
We're looking for other projects to replace. Oh, no. Just kidding. Bad joke.
Too soon. It's just too soon. Here is a beautiful photo of your temporary Gopher pump station. This is a borrowed pump skid that we're using that's intended for another use, but operations.
Looks good to me.
Operation says, you say that until they need it for Rainbow Hills. But here it is. So the site, when it's ultimately done, will look similar to the 3 new pump stations. You got wrought iron, much better security, cameras involved. It would have an emergency generator for backup power. It would be in a building that's fireproof, all of that good stuff. So working on that one.
And you'll have antenna interconnects.
Yeah.
Like
For
cable and
SCADA?
everything else.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
The water and wastewater master plan. So this is one we paused it for the spend rate. So at the last board meeting, this project was reduced to $100,000 for the approved budget for this fiscal year. So all we did was just delay when we're going to release the RFP. So that's it. So that is actually, I told the general manager earlier today, this is highest on my priority to get the final draft for his review. And then this will go out on the street for an RFP process and have a consultant. Robert and I have already met with 4 or 5 interested firms. So this is generating a lot of just buzz on the street and hoping to get some really good proposals on this one. And then sewer, we have 1. And this is the Rancho Montserrat, Rancho Viejo, and headquarters B plant emergency generators. All 3 of these sites have generators. Rancho Viejo, that generator died, and the district's one and only towable portable generator is now at that site. The other 2 locations, Montserrat and B plant, are obsolete. They don't make parts for these things. If they break, if you can maybe find a part on eBay, you're lucky, kind of a thing. So these are to replace these. Talking about outreach, the one at Rancho Montserrat is currently it's actually that photo. It's a below grade vault, which is not what you want a generator in. And so we have already reached out through Amanda Weber and the engineering department to that HOA. We are in the very early stages of this, but we just want to get the dialogue started because ideally this generator comes above ground. And so we're coordinating with them. This project is funded via the EPA grant that we initially got for the thoroughbred lift station, but wasn't able to be applied to that project. So we met with the EPA. We came up with alternative sewer projects that were needed and are doing it. And I just followed up with Esther and the EPA today because we have been told that if we start the design now, which we want to do, it is not guaranteed to be reimbursed by the grant or count as our matching contribution towards it.
Is that a state or federal?
Federal. Federal. So as soon as we are told, once you start expending funds, it's either going to count towards your matching or will be reimbursed. We will start the design process on this project. And that is open for questions. That is your year 1 mid-year CIP update.
Federal has someone been contacted by the Office of Management and Budget on,
They're closed.
well,
Joke.
no, it's not.
Mhm.
Verify this is still in docs.
So the firm that Jake was mentioning, Hope Consulting, is our third-party grant
Okay.
consultant that we're using, and discussions between Hoke, the district, and the EPA are ongoing as of last Monday.
Yeah, right now we've submitted our application and they're reviewing the environmental.
NEPA, yeah.
So yeah, we're proposing an exemption on this. They're just replacements. But so as we go through that process, obviously, we're going to make sure it actually is funded. So, yeah.
On the master plan, what is the operational or financial benefit that will be produced by this? And we have a very talented in-house crowd. What keeps us from doing this master plan ourselves? I mean, probably nobody knows how our system operates better than our own team. Robert, his guys,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to
And certainly
understand.
that's a big part of the input into this. What we're, first part of it is, we have no hydraulic model of the system, which is not a good thing. You want to have a functional hydraulic model of your system, for all kinds of reasons. Just for good planning efforts, right? When we are, to be honest, planning and prioritizing projects, this is the key tool that allows you to do that. And the last time we did a master plan was in 2016, and obviously we've gone through many changes since then. And so that's kind of key step one. We don't have staff to build a hydraulic model. I'll tell you that. That's a very specialized skill. And so that's kind of the first phase of it. But there is a lot of analysis that goes in then behind that. And I'm just talking on the water side right now, but a lot of analysis that goes in behind that. Everything from, opportunities, right, to increase redundancy and those kind of things, but also deficiencies. Where don't you meet fire flow? Where your pipe's too small, you have hydraulic deficiencies, too high velocities, things need to be upsized. That falls out of that analysis. It does allow you to also adapt to the changes we've seen, right? So our demand patterns have changed, our uses have changed. We have all these houses out here on the west side or the east side, and really a lot of changes even within the district that are driving a lot of those things. So it allows you to both put in kind of existing conditions and then future conditions, right? We have another development that's coming at Ocean Breeze. We've got another, these other developments that are coming in. That is another key benefit, is that it will drive kind of the necessary improvements to, like, right now we're kind of we've been piecemealing these things, right? Ocean Breeze comes in, we go, hey, let's hire the hydraulic modeler and hope everything's kind of set up right and that kind of thing. This actually gives you the meat behind when the developer comes in and says, hey, I want to build these houses. What do I need to do? And you go, well, this is what you have to do. You have to build that 16-inch pipeline that runs across here, so you can get fire flow here and you can get fire flow here. Even developments we haven't envisioned yet, right? When those come in,
Like the one I called you about, right?
right. So that comes in and you go, okay, where are you at? What do you plan to build? 60 homes. Okay, well, the closest thing you've got is an 8-inch pipeline. That's not going to work. Now we run the hydraulic model. Here it is. Nope, you got to upsize all this 12. Doing this, it's harder justification when those things happen, and not always perfection.
Jake, would we make the plan and ultimately you have this hydraulic model? Are we going to need to continue to pay money out the door for the consultant to operate the model when we want to run a scenario or a developer comes to us? Or are we going to be able to take this toy and be able to play with it ourselves rather than relying on somebody else to do it?
I've seen it done both ways. A lot of times smaller districts will still consult, to have somebody run the model. If you happen to have somebody in-house, in your engineering department or otherwise, I've seen that done before, analyzing developments and things like that. Even, a lot of times these commercial developments come in, right? And they've got huge fire flows. So you can do, I think a lot of those things, you probably could get in-house staff to do it. So you're not having to go out for every little piece. Bigger ones, you might sub it out, but we could do it either way. Once you have it built too, it's not terribly expensive to kind of, once you go, hey, this is a scenario. And a lot of times if it is development based, developers going to pay for it, right? You go, hey, here's the cost for this analysis, and that's just, it is what it is.
Mhm.
We're going to do our wastewater system also. And yeah, if I miss anything, feel free to jump in. One of the things we are going to do also as part of this master plan effort was we are going to do some asset management stuff. So talking about like our pipeline prioritization, we're 5 years removed, 6 years removed from the last time we looked at all of our leak data and all that. So, and we've still been compiling that. So we want to bring all that in now and kind of make sure that the pipelines that we're after are our most high priority. Again, I think we got 5, 10 that we know, right? They're in your face kind of, 8 breaks, and
We're paying for them every week.
that's
also,
right.
yeah.
You see it over and over again, but sometimes those things get hidden, in the midst of all the data, and so that's also going to be part of this. We've already done a lot on our wastewater side. Dexter Wilson actually did a pretty good job on our trunk system, analyzing our trunk system on the sewer side. But we want to, again, as part of this effort, build that out for our entire sewer system, which is not a huge effort. The huge effort's really on the water side.
Just
Yeah.
a quick example, when this would come in handy. So when a developer, let's say they want to build 1,000 homes and they hire an engineering firm like Dexter Wilson, they look at your master plan to see what
Mhm.
do you have planned for that area. Whether it's new pump station, what is your 5-year plan down the road for CIP projects? And then they look at your hydraulic model and they start running calc. So when your master plan is really outdated, which ours was outdated before detachment, and now it's completely outdated because of the way we move water is very different now. They'll do what's called a wastewater study, and they submit that to us and we review it. And they say, okay, we're going to build 1,000 homes here, whatever. And this is what we're going to do. And then I look at it, engineering looks at it, and we're like, no, that's not going to work. And this actually happened to a developer here. And I said, that's not where you think you're going to get water, doesn't exist anymore. That's not going to work for you. You got to redo that. And they're like, well, wait a second. 10 years ago, that was a good option. Well, yeah, that was 10 years ago, but this is now. So what it does is it helps us with our review of these water and wastewater studies where they're more accurate. What they're giving us is more up-to-date, accurate information of what they plan to do because we have an accurate, up-to-date master plan. And yeah, the hydraulic model for water helps get everything. Now that we're moving water from the north to the south, very different. But also we're going to do it we need to do it for wastewater. So you study how we're moving wastewater throughout the system. And then it, like Jake said, it prioritizes a little bit of, okay, what we think might be CIP projects versus what is our system capabilities telling us about CIP projects? But what is the system telling us, which could be different than what we think in our head.
Yeah. It is. It's a broad analysis. The other thing it will inform too is we'll update our capacity fees based on the long term, the master plan of projects. Again, last updated in 2017, and it was a pretty small pretty small study. So we're looking to do something a little more comprehensive to make sure we're collecting appropriate fees.
I think what's different about this, and Jake and Chad are very much on board with this. I've seen master plans developed by engineering firms and slid across. There you go, check that box, they're done. You open it up and you're like, what the hell is all this? Did you talk to anybody that works here before you did this? Because none of this is right. So in this case, as Chad and I've been talking to some of these firms that are expressing interest, like there's going to be a heavy component of staff involvement in this. We're not looking to just check a box and have some plan, off the shelf plan that you copy from somewhere else given to us. It's not going to work that way, not this time. So it's a big undertaking by staff, but also from the engineering firm.
Is this hydraulic model a commercial package of software that all the engineering firms use, or is it a custom for every engineering house?
No, it's it'll be a package software. There are a few options. you know, few different vendors and that kind of thing. So that'll be part of our kind of analysis too, exactly which product we want and that kind of a thing. But no, it's more of a, you know, there's software developers that, and they've been doing this for years, right? Develop these.
So you can
Yeah.
get training for in-house staff.
Oh, yeah.
On it.
Oh, yeah. And it'll use our GIS data. So that's the real benefit. It actually takes our GIS data. It always requires manual, you know, you got to go in and fix things and do things, connections and make sure everything, you know, and then you calibrate it and all the different things you have to go through. But it is, yeah, it can utilize our existing data to bring that in and at least give you the skeleton of it. And then from there, it's really the, you know, construction and calibration and that kind of thing. That's the big effort on those, but it is a software package. Yeah. And yes, one that you can get training on and learn how to use and learn how to do the analysis. And yes, all of that.
Okay.
So just going through the request real quick. We do have, this is at the you know, mid-year time. So we've got the 40,000. That's for us to complete that groundwater study. So we were 98% done. And really it's to get it into a form that it would be eligible for, you know, an uneligible feasibility study for the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. So they have very specific requirements. Feasibility study itself was just a project, but actually that's what's going on now. The Bureau is actually reviewing the draft feasibility study. We're going to get comments back from them and at least have that final document for that groundwater study, you know, if we ever want to move on it. And it would be eligible for grant funding at that point. That's the big thing. It makes you eligible for Title 16 funding and, you know, all the programs that the Bureau comes out with, which they fund a lot of those things. So if we ever do want to move on it, this is just kind of just the last chunk to get that thing shelf ready, I guess you would call it. The isolation valves, we talked about that, the valve replacements. That's a $50,000 add. 200,000 going back into the CIP. That's the elimination of that County Water Authority cost. The Gopher Canyon pipeline extension that got approved by the board. Post CIP approval for budget up to 600,000. We only spent 275, so 325 left unspent. And then we're adding that Morrow Tank project to move that planning effort forward. So all in all, it's actually a reduction of $335,000 from the CIP. But yeah, so those are the movers at mid-year. We looking for action?
Okay.
That's
No?
was informational.
Information. Okay.
All right, then are there any questions or comments? Okay. So we'll move on to item 16, as needed services. I don't think I saw any yellow.
There were none in
yellow?
January.
Okay,
Correct.
so no changes. Okay. Suggested agenda items for the next meeting. You guys got anything?
Well, you'll get the pump stations. Notice the completion for the pump stations will likely come in March. And we are going to be starting the 5-year CIP. So in a month, having a potential draft of the update to the 5-year CIP, at least the tables, get you the tables. And that might be the heavy lift.
Very interested in that. Absolutely.
Never, boss.
Seems like there was something else, but I can't come up with it. Okay, never mind. All right, well, thank you. I don't think there's anything else we need to do here. That gets us to item 18, adjournment. If anybody has an objection, we'll adjourn this thing. All right?
Nope. Thank you very much.
QED, quit and eat dinner. Almost 3:30. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great week.
Thanks, Meg.
Jake, I'd like to compliment the engineering team and the organization you've got